June 21st, 2019.
This is Nerd Bourbon episode 107. I'm Seth Sturgill.
I am Todd Sturgill.
Todd, does the depravity of the internet know no bounds? Is nothing sacred on the internet, Todd?
No, if you can think it, there's porn of it.
I really, it's been a while since I've done a Rule 34 search. It's been a while, and somehow within 30 seconds of us jumping into this conversation tonight, because it's in the middle of the night, I was working on editing my other podcast, Tea and Honey, and I hit Todd up and I was like, "Hey, you're up, I'm up. Let's go ahead and just record Nerd Bourbon for the week." And so we jump on, and within 30 seconds, we started talking about Boss Noss, the big guy from fucking Star Wars Episode 1, the Phantom Menace, the Gungan chief. And somehow we got on the topic of I bet there's porn of him.
Oh, I told you there definitely is. I've seen it.
Oh, it exists. It very much exists.
Oh, Misa like it.
Misa like it. That's bad, dude. It's fucking bad. I don't know what I expected, but I just that was just the internet in a nutshell for me.
Yep.
The depravity knows no bounds.
Oh, dude, there's, again, anything that you can possibly think of, there is porn of it.
And I don't even think a lot of these people, I'm sure there's somebody that gets turned on by Boss Noss and the Gungan army from Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
They love the way his neck shakes,
There's some people that get turned on by that. Okay, sure, granted, you do you, whatever. But there's some stuff where you see that people have made porn out of just the most random shit, and you're like, there's no way, this has to be a joke. Somebody's making it just to say that they've made porn of an Ozarka water bottle or whatever. I just looked at literally the first thing in my peripheral vision.
It's the way the curve of the bottle.
It's are there really people that get turned on by the most innocuous shit?
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me, honestly.
Anyway, what a rousing way to intro this episode, Todd. We're playing it loose, fast and loose. It's post
another
E3.
loosey goosey.
It's post E3, dude. I've worked hard these past couple of weeks to provide you fine people with long episodes, E3 coverage. There's not really been any news post E3, so I'm not covering any news on the show this week because there's just really nothing to cover. So I was like, Todd, let's just, let's have a laid back episode. Let's just chill, have a candid conversation about Boss Noss porn.
Yeah, it's honestly the highlight of my day.
And so we're just gonna play it by ear, man. Maybe a little bit of a short episode, but you know what? We're gonna have a relaxing episode of Nerd Bourbon this week. We're just gonna chill. We're gonna spitball. We're gonna relax. We're gonna have some candid conversation.
I should have poured myself a glass of scotch.
I would have done that, but it's so late.
Too late.
I was about to say it's so late that it's kind of crossing into early morning territory.
And
it's a little too early.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Well, I may need to be productive at some point today. So.
Fuck being productive now.
Todd, what have you been playing this week?
Well, a lot of Diablo. A shit ton of Diablo.
I doomed you to that life.
Oh, yeah, that's something we need to bring up, I think. Oh, you poor... Yeah. You didn't even know what you did.
I didn't know. It took me a few minutes to fully comprehend what I had done. So, there's... I got to back up quite a ways here. So, there is an amiibo that they released for Diablo 3 that is compatible with the Switch version of Diablo 3. It is called a Loot Goblin amiibo. A Loot Goblin in the game is a treasure goblin. It's something that you will see, kind of sporadically throughout the game. And every now and then, when you kill one, you have a small chance of it opening a portal to the vault, which is a kind of instanced mini dungeon where the treasure goblins come from. And it is a very good chance to get a lot of money and a lot of really rare drops. So it's kind of a big event when a portal to the vault opens. Now, this amiibo, whenever you scan it in, once per day, you can go to the vault at will. So for a long time there, I owned the amiibo because I own every amiibo because I'm a freak. And for a long time there, we would jump on daily just to do vault runs because I could every day access it. And
it honestly got to the point where it was like days where I didn't really need to talk to you, but I was.
You just wanted to use me.
I had a craving,
like a fattened calf, primed for the slaughter. But and I knew it. I could tell. I knew.
So I'd basically like almost jump off like.
Well, it wasn't even that. It's because I could tell you just like you had just woken up. Like you woke up and the first thought in your mind was, vault run? Vault run?
Time for a vault run.
Hey, bro, you want to do a vault run? So, anyway, so it got to the point, I fell off the game or whatever, and we were talking like, man, wouldn't it be cool if you had a Treasure Goblin amiibo too? We could do 2 vault runs every day. So, long story short, the amiibo was kind of like rare at this point, and the prices were ridiculous on eBay, like $50-$60. Now, finally, I noticed on GameStop, I was searching to see if they had some of the new amiibos out of E3 for pre-order, and I noticed that they were reprinting the Treasure Goblin amiibo coming out later this month, and that you could pre-order one for the standard $15. So I let Todd know, because he'd been kind of dipping his toes back in Diablo. And then after I let him know, he pre-ordered it, promptly. Mm-hmm. And it's a few minutes later, I was like, oh shit. I basically just guaranteed that Todd's going to be playing Diablo every day for the rest of his life now.
At least like for a vault run every day.
Because now you can just do a vault run by yourself every day.
And the message, as you realized and messaged me about it, he's like, oh, I just realized what I did. I was like, and you must live with that knowledge for the rest of your days.
I basically just doomed Todd to an existence where he is going to play Diablo every day for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Because you'll always have a vault run to do.
Always a vault run. And the thing is, like, it's got to the point now where I'm just like, dude, just dead ass, like, jumping on. And, like, I at least, honestly, it's like every day, I get home from work, I usually end up talking to you. And lately, I've just been doing, like, full bounty clears of like Act 1 through 5.
Yeah, what he means by that is like you can jump into adventure mode and do what is every act has probably like 6 or 7 bounties or something like that.
It's 5 bounties, I think.
5 bounties. So essentially he's doing like 25 little mini missions every day when he comes home. So and I've been there. I did that for a long time. It's been a
cycle. It's a cycle of me doing all these bounties. Getting the Death's Breath.
Yeah, Death's Breath endgame is you need it for basically anything you want to do.
So it's like by the time I do the bounties and like all that and like get all like the rewards, I usually have about like near 100 Death's Breath, and at that point I'm still like trying to like finish my build. I've actually remembered now what I actually wanted to get. Finally. I actually the armor power so there's a whole thing in the game where you can like take legendary powers from legendary equipment and have them equipped with this thing they added. Was it the Kanzai Cube?
Yes.
So one of the powers that I have is actually a bracer, and that's actually what I wanted to get. I wanted to get the actual bracer version of that so I can equip another armor power.
I see.
I don't know why it took me this long to realize it. I realized it actually when I was doing the bounty run earlier tonight, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Well, that's the thing is we'll sit there and have these spats of like months and months where we won't play Diablo, and then the craving sets in.
Oh, dude, it is a fucking addiction. Like, dude, and it's like I don't know why I got like we put a lot of time on fucking PS4, and it's just an asinine amount of time. Like even on the Switch now, it's like fucking hell.
The Switch is just the perfect place for that game. It's the perfect place for any game, really, with the power of the Switch.
Every game is made better with the power of the Switch. Other than that, I'm trying to think of I've been like kind of like diving in, so I ended up jumping in on that $1 deal for the Game Pass Ultimate. On Xbox One for Xbox Live, and honestly, it's like fuck. If you have an Xbox and you're not doing that, you're a fool.
Even at full price, that's a really good deal.
Even was it $15.99 a month? Come on,
$14.99. Yeah, $15 a month.
Oh Lord, it's even better. So, and it's funny is I don't even have to like pay for that again until like fucking October or some shit.
That's awesome.
Because it just fucking carried on to like what my other shit. So I'm like awesome. So I've been diving into some like round. I was like looking at the library of like games and whatnot. and I ended up downloading Ashen.
Oh right, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot you've been messing with that.
Yeah. I've been playing it today, but I've been like kind of like jumping on and like maybe doing a couple like quests here and there. It is, I mean, it's a Souls-like. It's up my alley, in a way. Reminds me very heavily of like some old school like Dark Souls 1 type of shit. I mean, it does its own thing. It's not like super like it's not like fucking. I like the fact that there's actual quests and like waypoints, so I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right.
And I mean, there's some interesting things to the game. Like shit gets a little trippy. Like at one point, like early on in the game, where I'm just sitting there and there's like a giant woman, like a giant fucking woman. I'm like, what the fuck? I was talking to you when that happened, and I was like kind of freaking out a little bit. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember seeing like footage of this game for years.
It's weird, man. It's like, you know, the game. I said this actually while playing. I'm like, the game's art style reminds me of Absolver, in a way. I mean, it has that like sort of like, you know, it's like get the faceless characters and whatnot, but it's like
it looks almost like it's made of clay or something.
Yeah, in a way. And there's interesting things like so like you'll have like an NPC with you a lot of the times. I don't know if you can like turn that off, but you have an NPC like kind of traveling with you, helping you out, depending on what you're doing. And you know, I'll probably be able to like talk about it more because I do plan on actually playing it a little more. Who knows if I'll beat it? Maybe I'll get bored of it. Who fucking knows? With me and video games nowadays.
Well, I mean, once you get that Xbox Game Pass, man, you just have such an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, well, shit. Because I ended up re-downloading. I ended up downloading like Oblivion, which I definitely plan on fucking with. Is it wrong that I would love to do like an actual series on me, my dumbass playing Oblivion?
Hey, dude, if you want to. I mean,
I'm thinking about it.
I honestly, I've had that Elder Scrolls itch here recently too, because I've been eyeballing going back to Skyrim, picking back up my little Skyrim Dragon Tales series.
I think I would need to recreate that intro, but I would do it in a heartbeat.
It's just a fun game.
Yeah, so Skyrim's great, and that's
just get that itch every now and then. Lord knows.
I've been having an itch to go back to Oblivion because Oblivion is my favorite Elder Scrolls.
Lord knows you're not going to get a new Elder Scrolls anytime soon, so might as well play the old ones.
Right? And other than that, I think I ended up downloading like Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie as well, because I do actually want to play those, and I know you want to play those as well.
So jealous. I wish I had the disposable income right now to just buy a fucking Xbox just so I could play those. I was just desperately, because after he got announced for Smash, obviously, I was in a fucking fugue state. And I was like hoping against hope that you could play them on PC or whatever. And
that's the first thing I checked is I was like, if I don't have to jump on my Xbox, I won't. But honestly, I am looking forward to the fact that like that Game Pass Ultimate is going to be for like stuff for PC.
Yeah, it's cool. I just wish everything was. I just wish everything was compatible.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it would be. I'm trying to think of the only other thing I've played since the last time we've done a non-E3 thing is Borderlands.
Oh yes, yeah. Let's give you an opportunity to actually talk about this DLC.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start it off with with a question you asked me after I played it. Is where do I rank it?
Okay.
Out of the DLCs, and I put it right in the middle, actually. So my ranking. People might have different rankings, but my ranking of I'm talking main DLCs, not like the stupid little Headhunter packs, which are great. Some of those are pretty great. I don't care.
I mean, they're fine for what they are. Yeah.
But as an actual like expansion to the game, I always go number one. It's Tiny Tina's. Like you can't beat that shit. Like that is honestly one of my favorite like expansions of like for any game. You know,
it's really really good.
It's really solid. So I go Tiny Tina, Pirate's Booty, then Captain Lilith's Battle for Sanctuary, and then the Torg, and then Hammerlock, which is a pile of ass.
Yeah, it's not great.
I can have fun with that DLC, but it's like back in the day when I was playing that game and I was like going hard on everything. That shit sucks. That shit sucks in a big bad way if you want to do every side quest.
The writing is fun and funny, and there are funny moments,
Yes.
and that's pretty much the only redeeming quality. The actual
Yeah,
quests,
because the rest of that expansion is primarily all the shit I hate from Borderlands 1.
yeah, the actual quests suck. And I
Oh
actually
my
think
god.
maybe I'm mistaken on this, but I think there was actually a separate team that handled that one.
It wouldn't surprise me. Because dude, that those quests are so garbage. Like just going off on a tangent. Like there's a quest where you have to kill rare versions of every enemy creature in that DLC, and the fucking spawn rate on that shit is abysmal. It's obnoxious type of shit. It's like fuck. I remember. I think I honestly was like loading into one zone for like fucking out like over an hour like
Oh
plus.
Lord.
Oh dude, it was ridiculous. I hated it. But yeah, back to Captain Lilith and the Battle for Sanctuary, which was it's a little tie-in, basically, kind of like with the gap between Borderlands 2 and the Borderlands
Kind
3.
of bridges the gap between 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Free shadow dropped DLC pack
Yep.
that was released during Xbox's E3 conference.
Now, I'm gonna go full. If you're listening to this right now, Seth, you might need to do a timestamp because I will more than likely be going full spoiler with this.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, spoiler mode activated.
All right. So my thing with this DLC, like, is the enemy like cool? Not really. He's just kind of a dude. His name's like Hector,
Uh-huh.
and it's whatever. Like the point of this DLC is not the enemy. It's getting Lilith as a character to accept her role as the commander. You know,
Right.
like that's the whole thing, to get her into that role that she plays in Borderlands 3, which we've seen in like gameplay. She's very much the commander of the Crimson Raiders and whatnot. And that is the point. That is the point of the whole DLC, and that's where it like ends up at the end of it. You know, she's like, there's a fucking line where she's like, "I'm making the call" type of bullshit, which is because that's her whole thing. It starts off actually in the beginning of the DLC where she's just kind of like, there's like a whole like meeting going on, and Lilith is off to the to the side, not trying to be a part of it. That's the whole it's the whole thing is a character building moment. You know,
I see.
so it's like Sanctuary ends up getting attacked by basically their former doll like military sort of that whole company. They attack Sanctuary simply to reclaim it.
And the dude Hector is like the head of Doll, right?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
He's like an old member of Doll, and that's
Okay.
he was sent to Pandora, by Doll, and all that good shit. Little known fact, if you don't know this, Sanctuary is an old Doll installation.
Mm-hmm.
So they simply want to get that back, and he wants to basically use it to spread these spores, these mutation, they're trying to make like fucking spores, plant life mutants. Basically, it's weird. So that's like the whole new enemy type is like these like spore-like versions of enemies. There's like they're weird. I don't remember like the names of them or anything. They got like weird names. There's like I think like actually yeah, I do remember one. The what do they call? Sorry, I'm not going to say it like they're by their. I'm going to tell them by their new names. The Tinks.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're called saplings.
Okay.
So I mean, there's like that whole thing. There's actually
is it like a zombies thing, like a Last of Us kind of thing, or
in a way that's a good way of looking at it because they kind of have like those growths on them.
they're infected.
Yeah, that is a way to look at it. And that's actually a whole thing with Mordecai ends up getting infected. Yeah, so you do save him. But let's backtrack. Let's backtrack to so the start of the DLC is obviously you do this whole fucking kill wall sitting there killing a shit ton of these new enemies like the Doll soldiers, and you basically get teleported out, and you basically lose. You lose the Hector that first round, obviously. And you gotta get your strength back, fucking regroup, figure out what's going on, and so you end up in this new part of Pandora, and you hear a familiar voice. If you've played Tales from the Borderlands, it's our boy Vaughn, which I loved. That was
same.
That was,
is it still same voice?
It
was Chris Hardwick, wasn't it?
I don't know, dude. Like, if it's not the same guy, he's doing a pretty like on point, fucking recreation. Because I definitely like recognized the. I recognized who it
I'm
was
pretty
instantly.
sure. I'm pretty sure Vaughn was voiced by Chris Hardwick, and I was curious if they got him back because there's all that controversy
I'm
with him.
curious now. I mean, it's kind of over now at this point.
It is. And even like his network kind of absolved him of all of that shit. But I just wondered if they wanted to still associated with him or not.
I mean, they're not saying anything. Like, I'm like looking it up, and it's still saying like Chris Hardwick and shit.
Actually, I see here Gearbox confirms Chris Hardwick will reprise former role for Borderlands 3.
All right, there you go.
So I assume that it was still him in the DLC as well.
It was our boy as the he's a whole like he's all into that bandit warlord shit now.
Yeah.
All his bandits are dead.
I just want to before we move on, I just want to stress again, as we've done several times on this very podcast, if you've not played Tales from the Borderlands and you're a Borderlands fan, you really should play that game.
Well, guess it's required playing at this point because everything is canon. It's all the shit's canon.
Because it actually matters. It's one of those spin-off games that actually really does matter.
Yeah, they carry this on into this DLC actually, which is what leads into one of my favorite little moments is you do this whole thing for it's a side quest for Moxie where you deal with Scooter's, will.
Right. Because that was one thing that I was like, when you play Tales from the Borderlands, and spoilers, like Scooter dies and sacrifices himself. And I was like, oh, are they going to like backpedal on this?
No, they did not backpedal. You end up transferring ownership to Ellie.
Right.
And it actually ends up to the point where you actually, she gets her own lines into the Catch a Ride with this DLC.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's great. And then you do a big old send off, which I really respect. You do you basically jump over where he landed, like the crater where he ended up crashing, and
yeah.
You do a whole jump over it,
That's cool.
And I loved every second. I loved every second of that DLC. I won't even lie, like I kind of got emotional.
Well, yeah, because I mean that's one of those characters that was there from the beginning,
Like Scooter moments have always kind of gotten me emotional. Like I still think back to like the that big old Catch a Ride.
Oh yeah.
With Sanctuary up in the air.
Well, and he's an endearing character because like he's an idiot, but he's a sweet, lovable idiot.
But it's funny is like he's also ruthless.
Yeah.
The man will kill you. In a way, love Scooter. There's a lot of things to love about this DLC. It ties into like what Borderlands 3 is going to be by the end of the DLC because it kind of gets like, seems like Brick, Mordecai, and like Tiny Tina, like you see them like in one of the trailers, like they're together.
Right.
Ties right into that. Basically, them going off the three of them. There's a lot of again bridging the gap with this DLC.
A lot of stage setting.
Yeah, a lot of stage setting to the point where it all makes sense. And overall, it was just a fucking great DLC. Had a lot of fun. Final boss was probably my least favorite boss in a long time. I'll say that. The final fight against Hector is just boring to me.
Really, maybe tank and spank.
I was dude. I was doing it on Ultimate Vault Hunter, so it's like everything's like scaled up and it was like kind of annoying. And it's one of those things where like I play a fucking melee Krieg. I can't melee this motherfucker.
Oh, yeah, so you're just kind of like hopelessly shooting and throwing your shit?
Dude, I know, I was still ulting, but I was just throwing my fucking thing at him. And it's like one of those things, I'm like, God, I wish I used... It was, honestly, it wouldn't even have been worth to use the B shield, because I wouldn't have been able to keep the B shield up. Because it was just like that bad.
Right.
Like, honestly, the fight just took longer than it needed to. Oh, because this whole thing is like he's in the center of this thing. You have to sit there and he's controlling all. He basically infects himself with the shit, and he goes like full like plant motherfucker basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying. It's an annoying fight. But yeah, there's a surprising amount of tie-ins with Tales from the Borderlands. Actually,
that's good.
Obviously with Vaughn, they brought Cassius. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, old guy.
Yeah, he's dead.
Yeah.
They make him a boss,
I assume because I think he can actually die in Tales, can't he?
He might be able to. I don't know.
So it was one of those things where if he doesn't die there, he dies here.
Yeah, so he definitely he becomes a boss.
Okay.
He was actually a better fight than than Hector at the end. But it's just a lot of cool moments in the DLC. A lot of fun. Side quests are side quests. There's some bad ones, some good ones. Honestly, one of my favorite. I will shout out that this is probably the last thing I bring up before we move on. It's the oddest couple. This is honestly probably one of my favorite side quests in all of Borderlands.
Okay.
It's so obviously I see like a fucking explanation point for a quest. I go up to it. I recognize it as like the Crazy Earl door.
Right.
And as it opens up, the fucking eye thing opens up, and it's just like, it's fucking Marcus, and it's just like, what you want? So Marcus, like, kind of finagled his way into Crazy Earl's, like, bunker and shit, in one of his bunkers. And it's just like, bro, it's fucking hilarious. Some of the dialogue in that shit is so good.
Nice.
And it ends with one of his vending machines being shot and destroyed, and Marcus running out to it, like, with arms flailing, like, oh, my baby! It's fucking great. Like, honestly, if you love Borderlands, it's a DLC worth playing. Like, and obviously, if you're going to be Borderlands 3, come on. It's required playing at this point.
I mean, the fact that they revisited this old-ass game.
Dude, exactly. Like,
and made new DLC for it for free. And then basically made the game for free, basically on every platform.
Yeah, it's just because honestly, it's a smart move, because it gets Borderlands back into the ether of this fucking this fucking world. Because Lord, the only people that really still play that game are motherfuckers like me that are still hardcore fans.
Well, it's like, I mean, you quite literally, I think I think PC is the only platform that is currently, like, charging for Borderlands at this point. And
still probably not even that much.
And even that is on, like, a really deep discount.
Yep.
So there's really, I mean, if you've ever wanted to get into Borderlands, now's the time.
Yeah, now is definitely the time. You can even start with the fucking remastered Borderlands 1.
Like, if you have Xbox Live Gold or PlayStation Plus, you can quite literally have, like, the Handsome Collection, which includes, like, all of the DLC, and get this new DLC for free, and I mean, have just a really complete Borderlands experience. Very ingenious for them to sort of, like, be like, hey, remember Borderlands exists, greater audience?
Right, it's a fucking power move, man.
I'd be very curious to know what the over-under is like on, like, the actual numbers, like, the actual people who are downloading and playing Borderlands right now.
That would actually be interesting to me as well. Because here's the thing, I'm not, like, playing it, like, religiously right now. Like, I was for a while. I was kind of just sitting there, like, playing the shit out of it. But this DLC to me was, like, a one and done. Kind of like I wanted to jump on, experience it. It's like what I consider the pre-sequel, in a way.
But there've got to be people who have never played Borderlands before, are interested in it, and now have a way to access Borderlands 2 in its entirety for free.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a
essentially
beautiful thing. Brings a tear to my eye.
And then, you give them, they have now less than 3 months between now and Borderlands 3, and, you sit there, you get them hooked. First hit's free, baby.
No, Lord.
Get them hooked. Reel them in. Yeah, it sounds like a good time. I have thought about jumping in, especially since you can just, like, make a level 30 character.
And I'm saying I would easily jump in with you.
The thing that really intrigues me about it is I'm like, man, that would actually make the trophy hunting a lot easier.
Oh, it would. It definitely would.
Because you essentially have to
hit a capstone, like, right there.
Yeah, because that's essentially what you have to do there. Like, for Salvador and Zero, you essentially need one of their capstones. So you kind of need to have, like, a level 30 plus character for both of them to get their trophies. Mm-hmm. So, as a trophy hunter...
That's the thing that sucks for Sal and Zero, is you deadass need to do, like, a solid playthrough to even, like, get their fucking trophy.
So that's cool. Anything else you've been playing this week?
It's been a lot of Diablo. That's really about it, though.
Beautiful. I've got a few things because I, as you know, I platinumed Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Finally.
It's left you in a fucking state of existential despair.
Well, now it's really bad because I played through all of the downloadable content offerings, and I've now 100%ed all of the downloadable content offerings.
Poor boy.
In Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So I now quite literally, I mean, yeah, could I still go on there and, like, fuck around? Yeah, but in terms of like actual missions and stuff, I'm done with that game until they release the third and final Fate of Atlantis DLC chapter. I have put roughly, I think, 130 some odd hours in the game now, with my save file anyway, so I'm approaching my Breath of the Wild count. And it's weird. Like, it's weird to actually be done with that game. I started playing that game in like April or something like that. And it's basically all I've been playing for like 2 months. And so it's weird to actually like put it down. I feel like I have a little bit of Stockholm syndrome. Like, I miss my kidnapper. I will say, I was pretty impressed with the Odyssey's DLC offerings overall. They're both pretty good. They have two. They have the Legacy of the First Blade, and then they have the Fate of Atlantis, and each of them are kind of like 3 chapters. And they each are comprised of maybe 5 or 6 missions, and a bunch of side missions and stuff. And pretty meaty DLC, actually. Like, you might be surprised. Like, when I actually platinumed and finished the base game, I had just crossed the 100-hour mark. And so now, playing all the DLC has essentially added another 40 hours onto my game. And it's going to be even more than that, because again, the third chapter of Fate of Atlantis still isn't out yet. So by the end of it, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if this DLC ultimately added another 50 hours to my gameplay. I mean, that's pretty goddamn impressive for DLC. So Legacy of the First Blade essentially tacks on missions and a little story onto the base game's world. Where it's kind of interesting because it kind of delves into Cassandra's like personal life, kind of like after the events of the main game. And it does so by tying in this interesting story with the person that first wielded the hidden blade. And that was interesting because, this game Odyssey takes place so far beyond, like, it takes place long before the events of even Origins. And there is no hidden blade in the game until you can see this character with it. And so that it was kind of like a nice, like, oh right, the hidden blade's a thing. It was kind of nice to see. And it was an interesting little story. It was kind of a nice, like, personal story, and I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of spoilers to be had about it if you're into the Assassin's Creed canon and lore.
It reminds me of in Origins when you use the hidden blade for the first time. In that game, and he Bayek loses a finger.
Right. Right.
And that becomes fucking lore.
Because that's why now you have to get the finger removed.
Before you remove it on accident.
Now they treat it like it's like a part of the sacred rites or whatever.
It's the creed.
Yeah, they don't really have that. It's just kind of interesting to see the first dude who really took the first steps into the assassin. Even this is long before the Brotherhood was formed, but he sort of laid the groundwork for the hidden blade. And it's interesting, man. And again, it's a much more kind of intimate and personal story, and it does something that I normally hate in video games. This DLC, there's a thing called ludonarrative dissonance, right? And what that means is, like, in Uncharted, for example, you're killing like thousands of dudes. Like, Nathan Drake is like a mass murderer, right? And I normally hate it when a game tries to like put that in my face. Like in Uncharted 2, I love Uncharted 2, but I couldn't help but roll my eyes at the ending of Uncharted 2 where you're going up against Buddy and he's like, "Oh, we're not so different. How many people have you killed just today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it was like a survival thing, dude." And in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, in the DLC, they touch on it in a similar way, but it's actually quite interesting because, without spoiling too much, in the Fate of Atlantis DLC, you're actually going to, like, the underworld and you're dealing with, like, the dead, and there are many, many, many situations where you're actually confronting the ghosts of your past and dealing with the people that you killed, and kind of seeing the repercussions of war and your actions. And like Cassandra has to deal with all this stuff in really interesting ways. And it drives home the fact that Assassin's Creed Odyssey, for my money, pound for pound, like Cassandra or Alexios, I guess, if you play the game incorrectly, is just a fascinating character in a really, really good action role-playing game. And I'm just like, I'm so anxious to see how they're going to follow this game up. Because, like, I'm so stoked for the rumored Viking setting and everything, but I'm like, man, like, how are they going to make a better game than Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Honestly. Like, I cannot fathom, like, I can't imagine any character that they're going to make. I can't imagine that I'm going to like them more than Cassandra. You know, because she really is one of the great, when I think back to this generation and, like, the original characters of this generation, I'm going to think back to Cassandra and her story and her journey, and it's pretty amazing. I'm very, very impressed with the game and its DLC.
I have a character like that.
Arthur Morgan. Was I correct?
Yes, you are. Arthur Morgan is my boy. Pour one out.
So I will say, though, that the Fate of Atlantis DLC is certainly meatier because each chapter, it seems like, chapters 1 and 2 anyway, each have like their own open worlds, and they have their own kind of like mechanics and systems in place, and they're interesting. I definitely liked 2, the Hades kind of centric one, a lot more than the Elysium one, because the episode 2 was a lot like smaller and more contained and did more interesting things. And episode 1 was just kind of like a little bloated. And I think the game in general, if I had one major complaint with the game in general, it is bloated. There is like too much to it. And I kind of hope that they take that criticism to heart, because a lot of people kind of say the same thing. When they're making the next one, I hope they're like, you guys can settle for just making like a 50-hour RPG. It doesn't have to be a 100-hour RPG.
Yeah, I feel that.
So I don't know. We'll see, I suppose. But they definitely, I really respect the way that they have handled this game's post-launch support, because they're constantly releasing new shit for the game and supporting it. I mean, the game came out almost a year ago now, and there's still constant DLC updates. They add in little side missions every now and then. The Lost Tales of Greece. They just released the Discovery mode that they had for Origins, just came out for Odyssey as well.
Oh, I'm gonna be honest. I actually really enjoy that shit.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I haven't fucked with it, but
no, dude, I'm telling you, like I sat there on the Origins shit like for a while.
Yeah, they just released that. They also released this weird like story creator that I haven't messed with, but apparently you can go on the website and like make your own missions. I don't really know how it works, but like if you have it turned on, you actually can see missions that other people have made pop up on your map. It's interesting. I don't know how well it works, but I mean it sounds interesting. Like user generated content, missions. So they've added, I mean you could really play this game for forever if you really wanted to. So I'm very much looking forward to the 3rd DLC pack. And until then, my life has no meaning. I was going through my sort of backlog after that happened, because I was like, you know what, Crash Team Racing comes out in a couple of days. It's actually out today at the time of this recording. Or sorry, at the time you're listening to this, it's out today. It comes out on Friday the 21st. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to playing it, but I needed something with some meat. You know what I mean? I needed something to chew into for a couple of days to bridge that gap. I need something to sort of distract me. And so I ended up doing 2 things. The first one, I've been playing the Spyro Reignited trilogy again. I re-downloaded that, and I'm having a very good time with that. I think I talked about it when I first started playing it, when it first came out, but it's just a really good remake of the Spyro games. Really fun game. The first game holds up extraordinarily well. Like, I can't believe how well it holds up. And looks beautiful, plays great. And I gotta say, I was giving my wife a little bit of shit because she's a big Crash Bandicoot fan, and I'm like, Spyro is just categorically just way better than Crash. I'm sorry. Like, I love Crash Team Racing, but Spyro, much better. Just no question. Like, Crash got good, When you're talking about like Crash 2 and Crash 3 and everything, but the first Crash Bandicoot game is rough, dude. With Spyro, like right from the beginning, it's really, really good, and then it just got better. So, granted, you can't take away anything from Crash. He paved the way for a lot of this stuff. They were working on Crash before Mario 64 came out and said, yeah, no, this is how you make a 3D platformer. So you got to respect Crash. You got to tip the hat to Crash. But, the reality is Crash Bandicoot, the first one, is just not the best. So enter Spyro Reignited Trilogy, and you have a really solid package of 3 really good games that still hold up today and have just a really shiny coat of paint. And I can't help but wish, Todd, that they would give this treatment to Banjo.
You'll never get it. Well, actually, it would be awesome, honestly.
I don't need them to make a Banjo 3. I don't need them to crack that nut. I don't need anything but for them to just give Banjo a new coat of paint. Give these guys... I don't care what you do. I mean, Microsoft could do it internally. You could let Rare do it, whatever. Just give Banjo to somebody and let them give it a new coat of paint. I don't even care if you put it in a 2-pack with 1 and 2E. Just do the first one. Just dip your toes in the water. These are clearly not that expensive to make because Activision puts out Crash and Spyro, and Sony's doing a Medieval remaster. They're releasing these games at like $40, $30-$40. So like they're not that expensive to make clearly, and they're, for me anyway, really effective. Like I'm having a blast going back and revisiting Spyro. To me, these are like the gold standard of like how you should remake a game. They look beautiful, they play exactly as you remember them. And it's just really nice. And I would kill for them to do something like this to Banjo. Just give it a new coat of paint. That's all you got to do. Get Grant Kirkhope to come back in and like remix some of the music, reorchestrate the music and stuff. I know he'd be happy to do it. And just give Banjo a new coat of paint. You don't need to make a new game. Just have a dev team throw some money at a dev team for like a year. To give Banjo a new coat of paint, redo the graphics and stuff, and redo the music, and you're good. I would be so thrilled with that. I don't necessarily need a third game. So anyway, and it had me thinking, like, are there any other series that I really want to see this happen to? And I'm a little bit curious. I'm like, I can't really think of too many of these sort of mascot platformers that still have not received some sort of touch-up or some sort of love. Because thinking about it, Crash has his Insane Trilogy. We now have the Reignited Trilogy with Spyro. We've got Medieval getting its remaster. Parappa's been remastered. I can't really think of too many games that have still been untouched that I would like to see remastered. Ratchet has its sort of reboot that is alive and well. As far as we know, I still say that a sequel to that is forthcoming. So we'll see. But it's been a nice kind of like refreshing. It's just a turn your brain off, listen to podcasts kind of game. Checklist. Go through these levels and 100% them. Colorful collectathon platformer. Good game. But the big thing, Todd, to sort of round out what I've been playing this week and indeed to sort of close out the show this week, I do want you to take my hand and come with me to Seth's Indie Corner.
No! All right.
Cadence of Hyrule, Todd.
Oh, yes. I have overheard this game being played.
Oh, the music?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Cadence of Hyrule is a indie game made by the Crypt of the Necrodancer team. And it is a rhythm action RPG, which is interesting. So the whole gimmick of this game and Crypt of the Necrodancer before it is attacking and movement and strategy against enemies and stuff all has to be done to the beat of the music. So every time you move a space, it's on a grid pattern. You have to do it to the beat of the music that's playing.
What happens if you don't?
You just don't move and it says you missed a beat. Or there's actually with Cadence of Hyrule, Cadence of Hyrule is actually a lot more casual than Crypt of the Necrodancer is, because you can actually turn off the rhythm mechanic altogether and just completely ignore it.
Huh.
In the options.
Respect.
Here's the deal, though. It's actually kind of dangerous to do that because when the rhythm mechanic is on, both you and the enemies are moving to the beat. When it's off, the enemies are moving as fast as you are.
hog wild in this bitch.
Yeah, so if you're just blazing through, like jumping around all over the place, so are the enemies. So you have to be very careful if you're going to play the game that way. Personally, I prefer doing it to the actual rhythm, and to me that just adds another layer of strategy to it, and it just feels good. It plays like a sort of like rhythm game, and again, because you're not having to like match button presses, you're just sort of like moving to the beat. You're not like, there's not really any strategy to the actual like rhythm, you're just moving to the rhythm. You're not having to be like, oh, I have to press A or B at this certain time. So it's not like a typical rhythm game in that way. But you can use that sort of portion of your brain to then worry about combat. And it's interesting, some of the enemies behave in certain ways. It's very pattern based. You really have to know your enemy in this game. The original Crypt of the Necrodancer was a 100% roguelike. So you would go into these like crypts and it would be completely randomly generated. And in this one, it is not. So the screens are randomly generated and the dungeons are randomly generated, but there are several things that are persistent through your adventure. And it's a very basic adventure. It's a very basic Zelda structure of like, hey, go to these 4 corners of the map and complete these dungeons and get these items and take on this bad guy and beat the game. It's very, very straightforward. But the puzzle solving within is very like Zelda-like puzzle solving. The game is gorgeous. Like, it has some of the prettiest pixel art I've ever seen. You've heard the music. The remixes of some of these Zelda soundtracks are fucking phenomenal. Oh my god, this game may have my favorite Zelda track, probably my favorite Zelda song period, is Kakariko Village. And this game might have my favorite version of Kakariko Village, just period. And so the music is great. Honestly, the game's like $24.99. I think the soundtrack is worth the price of admission alone. And it just has really solid rhythm combat gameplay. I really like it. You can play as either Link or Zelda. Zelda can kind of use magic-based attacks. Link has the more melee-focused attacks. Functionally, they're pretty much the same, but again, Link can kind of get up close and personal. He does like his spin attack. He has shields. Zelda can use like the different sorts of magic, like the, Din's fire and stuff like that. I can't say enough good things about it. It's really cool.
Sounds lame. No, I'm just.
It's not your cup of tea, for sure.
I already knew it wasn't my cup of tea.
It's definitely not your cup of tea. But if you are a Zelda fan, if you're a rhythm game fan, I think it's worth checking out. I think it really has a lot of like really solid old school like 2D Zelda, kind of top-down Zelda gameplay mixed in this interesting kind of rhythm RPG. It's really kind of neat, and the music's phenomenal. I gotta say, this is an interesting game for me, like, kind of thinking about it, because Nintendo does not often give their IP to people to work with. And Zelda in particular has only really been given to a couple of people, like Capcom made their Zelda games, and that's like mostly it. Like they haven't really, the Zelda property has been very well guarded by Nintendo. People don't often get to make spin-off games. So for Nintendo to collaborate with an indie developer like this is really unprecedented. And it makes me wonder, like, is Nintendo going to be more open to work with independent developers in this capacity with other spin-off games? Like, it would be so awesome if they, if they coupled with like these kind of independent developers and said like, hey, why don't you make a Metroid game? Or like, why don't you make a Donkey Kong game? Like, take the guy who made like Axiom Verge, which is essentially a Metroid game. See what he does with Metroid. It's interesting. It's an interesting kind of thought experiment to be like, Nintendo is finally sort of like opening the doors and letting people play in their sandbox. And I find that fascinating. For a small team like this, the Crypt of the Necrodancer team, to work with probably the biggest IP in all of video games, and to play with Nintendo's toys, that classic music, that classic Zelda music, that classic gameplay, all these characters, all these enemy designs and stuff like that, it's really cool. Anyway, that's Cadence of Hyrule, and that's pretty much all I've been playing this week. I really have nothing further to report. I'm gonna, moving forward, I'm gonna continue playing Spyro. I do plan on platinuming the first game at the very least. Seems like it's a very doable platinum. All three of them look like really doable platinum, so I would like to work through them all. But the first one for sure, I'm gonna platinum because I'm pretty much like I'm in the bottom like half of that game. Looking forward to Crash Team Racing. That remaster's coming out this week. Next week we've got Mario Maker. I cannot wait for Mario Maker because we're gonna be getting some YouTube content out of that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait to create some prisons for you.
You can try
to try to play through. So I just it's gonna be really fun, man. Like Mario Maker is gonna be a really good, I think, sort of YouTube series for us. To I'll make some levels for you, you make some levels for me, or whatever, and we'll pit each other against each other.
my levels are just gonna be memes.
That's fair. But you could even do like the sort of thing where you play other random people's levels. I'm really, really excited for Mario Maker.
Either way, I'm looking forward to it.
And
the only thing I have left to say is everyone get ready for Diablo talk.
Oh Lord.
For months.
Oh no.
It's the new Monster Hunter talk.
No. I can't wait to
welcome to hell.
And then, like, in a few more weeks, we actually have Wolfenstein Youngblood.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
That'll be fun. That'll be a fun co-op playthrough, which we'll do an entire playthrough of on our YouTube channel as well. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to some of this stuff coming out. It's not, like, major stuff, but it's stuff. And we're toying with the idea of, like, do we maybe want to record ourselves playing WoW Classic? Do we maybe want to turn that into something? That could be interesting.
Who knows?
So
it's all free real estate.
It's all free real estate, folks. If you would like to see us play, if you would like us to do a YouTube series based on our WoW Classic gameplay, leave us a comment. Let us know. So maybe that'll be something.
Who am I? Who are we kidding? You guys are gonna comment.
You calling them out, throwing down the challenge flag.
A little bit, yeah.
So anyway, I think that's gonna do it for us, Todd. Unless you got anything else you want to add.
I think that's about it, man.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll catch you next week. Get fucking dunked on. Bye.
See ya.
Hey there. Thanks for checking out another fantastic Nerd Bourbon video. If you like what you saw and you want to see more, be sure to go ahead and subscribe. Leave us a like. Drop us a nice comment, or I guess a mean one if that's your prerogative. But until next time, get dunked on.